Thank you for the introduction. I have first a quick word for the parents and the legislators who just spoke, both at the state and federal level. We have a very honorable concept in American history called civil disobedience. And I think parents should be able to exercise their right to this concept in opting their students' children out of school on the day that either Common Core testing is being done or pilot testing is being done. They should be able to exercise their judgment as parents. This would be especially relevant for parents of those students with learning disabilities. And I think there might be enabling legislation at both the state and federal level that would ensure that parents could exercise their judgment about opting out without any penalty accruing to their children's absence for these tests. That's my first suggestion. My second relates to something that was mentioned much earlier by an earlier speaker about all of the private interests that have been funding the various aspects of Common Core, its development, its distribution, its promotion, all the propaganda that we actually now see and hear. And many people are willing to overlook these efforts by private corporations, and particularly one particular foundation, because they have been led to believe that these standards are rigorous, competitive, internationally benchmarked, research-based. They are not. We have been a very poor set of national standards. And a good part of the problem we are facing in the schools is to dig ourselves out from under the various constraints that we have found ourselves caught up in by these very definitely not first-class standards. A lot of people would not begrudge paying extra tax money for really first-class educational facilities and curriculum materials. What we have is so far from it that it is throwing good money at bad to support it. But let me just explain very quickly for English language arts why they are inferior to what many states had already, including New York's own previous English language arts standards. First of all, most of their English language arts standards are not really standards. They are content-free skills, and a content-free or free-floating skill can be applied to anything from the Three Little Pigs to Moby Dick. There is nothing to guide the test developers necessarily or teachers in their judgment about what specific text the curriculum should offer. A second flaw is a huge one. It is that Common Core stresses writing more than reading at every grade level. There are more standards for writing objectives than there are for reading objectives. And as every good teacher knows, writing is dependent on reading. All good writers have been good readers, and there's 100 years of research to back that up. Students will be spending a great deal of time trying to work on writing, and it will be mainly a waste of time in their certainly early classrooms. Another flaw is that these writing standards are often developmentally inappropriate, and this is very true at early grade levels and in the middle school, where young students are asked to come up with claims which they do not understand because they have not had any coordination with readings that would show them what a claim in an informational text is. And this leads to the next flaw, that is that English teachers are expected to spend at least half of their reading instructional time at every grade level from K to 12 on something called informational text. And this is not the kind of material that English teachers have been trained for that will actually develop critical thinking, which is one of the big buzzwords to be promoted by those advocates of Common Core. If we are to figure out where critical thinking gets developed at all, it comes from learning to read between the lines of complex literary texts. They are going to be reduced, and something called informational text will be taking its place. What those are will vary from school to school, class to class. You will not have a common curriculum or a very high-level curriculum. Parents need to find out what informational text their students are being asked to read. Finally, we have another buzzword or mantra to tackle. Common Core is frequently described as having standards that are fewer, clearer, and deeper. Well, they aren't. They just look fewer because many different objectives or activities have been bundled incoherently into one standard. And I'm going to give you one quick example so you'll know what I'm talking about. I was trained as an academic researcher, and I always provide examples. And anyone who wants to see more examples or details for all the points I have mentioned can go to my homepage, the University of Arkansas. All you do is Google Sandra Stotsky, Arkansas, and it will be one of the very first items to pop up. But here is a grade 9 or 10 standard. It asks students to determine a theme or central idea of the text and analyze in detail its development over the course of the text, including how it emerges and is shaped and refined by specific details, and also write an objective summary of the text. This is a wretched sentence. No good English teacher would have ever allowed a sentence like that through any piece of composition. It is the jumble of at least 3 different activities: determining a theme, analyzing its development, and summarizing a complete text. So that's how we get fewer Common Core standards. So to finish up my little talk here, remember that Common Core standards are not rigorous. They're going to be told to you by the media, who do not know how to read standards, that Common Core standards are more demanding, but they don't know how to read a set of math and English standards. Common Core standards are not internationally benchmarked. I have been asking since I was on the Common Core's validation committee what countries we were internationally benchmarked with, and could never get the name of one country's set of standards. We are not comparable to high-achieving countries. So we have to either revise these standards thoroughly or simply abandon them before we spend any more money on them, because the amount of money we have already spent for professional development is basically a waste of money. I will conclude here because there is much more detail that could be said, but cannot do 1 or 2 minutes. I'll sign off right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stotsky. Thank you.